Zaxwerks 3D Invigorator Pro allows you to create 3D text and logo animations directly inside of Adobe After Effects. Let's take a look at what this plugin has to offer. So to find out more information about Zaxwerks Invigorator Pro, you can head to the Zaxwerks.com website and take a look under products. So once we click on products, there are a ton of different Zaxwerks plugins. We're going to be focusing on the Invigorator Pro, but you can see here Pro Animator AE and a bunch of different products. You can also become more familiar with the tutorials that they have to offer on all of their products. Some great ones in both beginner, intermediate, and advanced. So keep in mind, this is a great resource to have for all different things. Let me just close this out and we're going to hop into After Effects. I'm here in my chapter 4.7 composition. I've got a Zaxwerks solid layer in the composition and a background that's a gradient that's going to be revealed once I apply the Invigorator Pro preset, which is under my effects and presets. So I'm going to select the Invigorator Pro preset and apply it to the Zaxwerks solid layer. And right away, I'm going to click on Create 3D Text to go into the 3D text window. I'll type in seconds and I'm going to choose a font here. I want to choose actually this Proxima Nova font. Now, to make sure this was something that I downloaded earlier in a earlier chapter, you can find this in Creative Cloud by using Typekit. So with Proxima Nova selected, I'll choose extra bold, and you should see there that the text updates. And once we're finished, we can press OK to go back into After Effects. That text is now immediately extruded, and we can see the background behind. So one really cool thing I like about Invigorator Pro is the scene preview. I can click and drag here to orbit around my scene. And just notice there's no After Effects camera. Right away, I can get up and running and be able to orbit around and get a sense for, in this case, the 3D text, but you can work with Illustrator files. You can actually add various models into your scene. It's a full engine designed for working with 3D. So you can get up and running with this right away. One of my favorites is let's scroll down and actually start to look at the lights and flare section. There are some incredible lighting rigs located here. And to start to see this off, we're going to go into Light Set 1. And under Light Set 1, we'll be able to see some preset lighting rigs. I'm going to hit the disclosure triangle. And I'm going to choose, instead of a parallel light, we're going to choose a spotlight. And after that's chosen, in order to see the lights in the composition window, the overlays for the lights, we need to change this layer to a draft mode. So I'm just going to click down here and change it until I get a draft mode. And then I want to start to add some lights to the scene. Excellent. So I'm going to come up here to number of lights and let's increase the amount to 10. Right away, you'll see those lights increasing as well as it interacting with our text. And I'm going to make some changes to where this rig is set up across our letters. Where I could start off with is pipe size. I'm going to just increase that to make the rig a little bit bigger and then move the position start value over a bit to the right to make that a bit more tight. So we can actually change where these lights are pointing by going to the point lights at and changing. I'm going to change that to origin. It's going to go straight there. All the lights are pointing to the center of your composition, just like that. Now I'm also going to play around with the rotation of these lights. So you can see here I'm rotating them on X. I also got the ability to rotate them on Y. Let me hit Command Z to undo those two options of playing around with the rotation. And let's play around with some color. We can do some elaborate setups here on our rigs. I'm going to change this to 1 color to 3 colors random. And I've got up to 3 light colors that I can switch here. So I'll change the first one to a red color, second to a green, and third to a blue. These are just highly saturated because of the example, for the example purposes. I'm going to now change the light color setup here. So you can see the pattern of the lights. I'm going to change this to 3 color alternating. You can see there now the new pattern of how the light colors are working. Let's just change this to something else, to grouped. And last, I'm going to change it to random vivid, where we get a completely different type of color setup. I'll just click on a different random here so you can see that. Let's close out this light and flare section and head up to the top. We're going to click on the setup button. This is going to bring us into the Invigorator Pro interface. So just note that we can have more control over here. And in the left-hand side, there's my object list. Right now, what I'd like to do is actually click on the flares for light set to show you that you can actually add light flares or lens flares to your lights. And this is extremely powerful. This is the only 3D plugin that gives you access to both lens flares as well as the ability to extrude shapes and text, which is extremely powerful. So picture adding one of the flares over here on the right-hand side to one of the lights for maximum control and creating some very interesting 3D scenes. I'm actually going to head to the object set 1 just to show you that's where my text block is selected. And now we're going to go select object set 2 to add a new object to it. I'll head up to the object menu, and from it under create 3D primitive, we're going to choose to add a cube. You can see there a cube gets added to the scene, and with it selected, I can see its set controls. I'll click on set position, and we're going to move that back negative 200 pixels. Excellent. So you can see we pushed that back. Now let's change or fool around with the size of the cube. I'll increase it in both X and Y. In fact, I'll also increase it to about 400 in X just to cover the text and move its X position to negative 100. Great. So you can see that. Now let's start to play around with the materials of this object. So by the way, these are going to show up separately in After Effects because they're part of different object sets. But let's now add a material to the primitive. I'm going to go down to the materials workspace. And on the far right-hand side, I'm going to add a material to my material dock. And now you can see that my cube, or let's call it rectangle, is now set up with that color. In Invigorator Pro, we can actually see our lighting setups better. So I'm actually going to go into my lighting workspace. And in here, there's a way to show pipes and trusses. What I'm going to do is just scroll to the bottom. And you'll see there's a button for show pipes and truss. And that will show that on the lights. Let's actually also show a couple extra things. We're going to choose to show fixtures and show our light cones. And this just gives us a better overall review of our scene. And this is going to show up in After Effects. I'm now going to go back inside of After Effects by pressing OK here on the top left. And we're going to make a couple final changes to our scene. The first thing we're going to do is explore some of the warping options available inside of Invigorator Pro. So in my effects and presets, I'm going to go down to the warp section. And here under the warp section, I'll hit the disclosure triangle here to the left. And we're going to apply a warp to our text, which is part of object set 1. So I'll open up warp 1 and choose the apply object set to 1, which now bends the text from the center. We could, of course, change the warp style. So from this list, I'll actually choose bulge, and I'll just going to now change this back. I'll adjust the amount of the warp. I'm going to decrease it a bit from its original 25 and bring it back down to 16. And let's close out the warp section and head to the top and just start to scroll around the scene. And you'll remember that we actually offset the rectangle shape inside of Invigorator Pro. We just want to change its position ever so slightly, just because of this offset in our camera. I'll go to the objects and we'll look at object set 2, which the shape is part of. And under set positioning, I'm going to take the X position and move it a little bit closer to my text now in this camera view. Excellent. I'll close out object set and the objects, and let's go to lights and flares and just do an animation of our lighting rig. Under light set 1, we're going to identify the rotation value of the lights, the position X rotation. So I'll add a keyframe here at the 1 frame mark or the 0 frame mark in my composition and move those lights away from my objects. Now let's move to 5 seconds. And here at 5 seconds, we'll position those lights to point towards our objects yet again. This is looking great. Let's actually select the keyframes here in the composition window by pressing U and then selecting the parameter and hitting F9 to easy ease those keyframes. I'll scrub my current time indicator back and forth so you can see that animation. And that took not so much time whatsoever to complete. Well, just note here that there's a lot here in Zaxwerks Invigorator Pro. Check out zaxwerks.com to explore more tutorials on the subject of Invigorator Pro and all the fine features this plugin has to offer.